Al-Ja'fari says some states approach the situation in Syria in a misleading way in service of terrorism and extremism. Lavrov asserts that Geneva II priority should be to combat terrorism, and the Syrian government and opposition should combine efforts to eliminate the terrorists. Five people are killed and 46 injured in a terrorist blast in a Haraik neighborhood in Beirut's southern suburbs. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. Reading out Syria's statement at the UN Security Council during a session to discuss the item entitled The Situation in the Middle East, Syria's permanent representative to the UN, Dr. Bashar al-Ja'fari, said the delegations of some states deliberately referred in their statements to the situation in Syria to distract attention from the essential topic of discussion, namely ways and means to end Israeli occupation of the Arab lands. These delegations, Dr. al-Ja'fari added, referred to terrorism on the eastern side of the Syrian borders, namely in Iraq, disregarding the terrorism in Syria. Al-Ja'fari talked about the concern of the British, French and other Western countries' foreign ministers, as well as the director of the American FBI, over the return to those countries of those terrorist nationals who have been shedding blood in Syria. Al-Ja'fari said Turkish trucks sent by the Turkish government, which were supposed to carry humanitarian assistance to Syria, were stopped by the Turkish police by accident inside Turkish territories, and they proved to be carrying weapons, not medicines, children's food or blankets. Al-Ja'fari pointed out that the same delegations ignored what Palestinian Labour Minister Ahmed Majdalani had said in Damascus a few days ago, namely that it was the terrorists who had opened fire at the UNRWA-organized convoy of humanitarian assistance when it was trying to enter Al-Yarmouk camp. Al-Ja'fari said that the subject in question, which was supposed to be discussed at the UN Security Council session, was the Palestinian issue and an end to Israeli occupation of the Arab lands. If some Arabs have done what pleases Israel, I won't do the same. Syria's permanent representative to the UN said Syrian citizens under Israeli occupation in the Golan wouldn't be treated in Israeli hospitals and wouldn't be allowed to study in Arabic in schools according to the Syrian education curricula if they refused to carry Israeli identity cards. Al-Ja'fari stressed that if the UN wishes to maintain its credibility, then some known states should end their double standard policy and associate words with deeds. The lifting of sanctions. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has affirmed in a press conference he held in Moscow today that the important thing in the crisis in Syria is the increasing danger of terrorism and extremism, and that priority should be given during the Geneva II conference to the ways to combat them. He stressed that the Syrians should determine their own future without any foreign intervention.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has reiterated emphasis on the need for the results of the upcoming Geneva II conference to lead to the unification of the efforts between the Syrian state and the opposition in order to eliminate Al-Qaeda-linked armed terrorist gangs. In his annual press conference, Lavrov said the Russian-American initiative stipulates the beginning of dialogue among Syrian parties in the interest of the full implementation of the Geneva I statement, which did not call for changing the regime. In reply to a question on the possibility of unifying the efforts of the Syrian Arab Army and the so-called Free Army to combat Daesh on the Islamic Front, Lavrov said the Free Army, Jabhat al-Nusra and Daesh all embraced the same thoughts and carried out the same acts. The Russian Foreign Minister said withdrawing the invitation addressed to Iran to take part in Geneva II was a mistake and an obstacle in the way of unifying the Islamic world in its war on terrorism.
In turn, Russian Foreign Ministry asserted that the decision of UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to withdraw Iran's invitation to attend Geneva II conference has disappointed Moscow because such a step would weaken the international efforts to resolve the crisis in Syria. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Jawad Zarif has expressed regret over the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's withdrawal of the invitation he had addressed to Iran to take part in the international conference on Syria following pressures exercised on him. Zarif said such conduct does not benefit the UN Secretary General. The Iranian Faris news agency today quoted Zarif, who is currently visiting Turkmenistan, as saying that Ban Ki-moon had contacted him several times last week and that he frankly told him that Iran refused any preconditions for taking part in the conference. Iran had earlier declared its rejection of any preconditions to attend the international conference on Syria, which is due to be held in the Swiss city of Monroe tomorrow Wednesday, with an international and regional participation on a wide scale. Iran's Assistant Foreign Minister for Arab and African Affairs, Hossein Amir Abdullahian, said that his country will not participate in Geneva II conference scheduled to be held tomorrow because the Americans insisted on putting preconditions. Abdullahian said that the US is illogically insisting on imposing preconditions on issues that must be resolved by the Syrian people only, according to the international law and democratic principles. Abdullahian added that Iran hasn't participated in Geneva I conference and it hasn't played any role in issuing its communique, so Iran doesn't insist on participating in Geneva II. Abdullahian reiterated the need to find a political solution to the crisis in Syria. Welcome back. In Daraya city in Damascus countryside, units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces have found a huge quantity of arms and ammunition inside a store used by the terrorists. Among the seized weapons are RPG launchers, machine guns, rifles, explosive devices, 50mm mortar shell rockets, Israeli-made grenades, and binoculars. For the fourth day in a row, the operation of delivering humanitarian assistance continued to Al Yarmouk Palestinian refugee camp in Damascus, evacuating the patients from it. In Idlib countryside,
residents of the camp recounted that the prices of food soared as the armed groups exploited the civilians, showing no mercy even for children. One child was denied even a piece of bread. Next day, he died of hunger. The armed terrorist groups have prevented the access of food into the besieged civilians in Al Yarmouk. Some residents who were in very bad conditions were allowed to go out of the camp yesterday. They recounted the tragedy of children and people who were languishing under the siege by the armed groups. Meanwhile, about 600 boxes, including 18 tons of food and humanitarian assistance, have been delivered into the camp, hoping to respond to the initiative by the National Reconciliation Commission, supported by the Syrian government, to put an end to the suffering of the besieged in the camp.
In Idlib countryside, units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces have eliminated all members of an armed terrorist group, some of whom are Turkish, Chechens and Egyptians, and destroyed 2 cars equipped with heavy machine guns in Nabi Ayyub area. In Aleppo, units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces have killed a number of terrorists and destroyed their vehicles in Haylan, Blat, Salah ad-Din, Bustan al-Qasr, Babis, Yaqd al-Adas, Zaid, Der Jamal and Der Hafir al-Sharqi. Other units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces have foiled an attempt by an armed terrorist group to infiltrate to Mahallet al-Sayyid al-Ali and killed some of its members. Other units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces have targeted terrorist gatherings and killed a number of them south al-Ma'mal al-Turki, al-Bayt Farm, the vicinity of Talayt al-Mushat, Rasm al-Abboud, the Central Prison, Hreitan and Al-Wudayhi. In Homs, units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces have killed members of an armed terrorist group in Al-Ghasibiyya village in Ad-Dar al-Kabira who were firing rockets on the neighboring villages. Units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces have thwarted an attempt made by terrorist groups to infiltrate towards Al-Abudiyya Talhanash axis in Al-Qasir southern countryside, killing or injuring a number of them and destroying a 106mm cannon and 4-wheel vehicles. Other units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces inflicted heavy losses on terrorists in Salam Gharbi, Salam Sharqi, Al-Shandakhiya, Rish, Mas'ada and Rahum villages, killing or injuring most of them. 4 people were killed, including women, and 46 injured in the terrorist blast that took place in Harit Hareik in Beirut southern suburbs. The Lebanese Al Manar TV station said the blast took place in Martyr Ahmad Qasir Street, where the latest terrorist blast took place on the 2nd of this month, adding that the blast caused heavy material damages. Members of civil defense were trying to save those who remained inside the houses close to the site of the blast. The Lebanese National Agency said that a booby-trapped vehicle in Ashari al-Arid in Hareik neighborhood exploded, adding that it took place only 70 meters far from the site of the latest blast. Finally, in our local news, a few days ago, the Syrian Gari channel was inaugurated in the city of Latakia. A set of programs have been kicked off tackling various political, social and artistic topics. It is a land channel that initially covers the Syrian coastal and internal arenas.
A new Syrian channel is born from the womb of challenge, from the soul of determination to continue and succeed. Name, Ogaret Channel. Place, Latakia. Purpose, to enhance the Syrian media developing. After nearly 3 weeks of channel setting out, the results of hard work have appeared through many programs which are involved in several issues. Ogaret is launched and a new hope rises. Syria faces the cruel war with hard work, creativity and construction. All the best wishes for the Syrian media.
For the English news, Syrian channel, Latakia, Ranim al-Basha.
With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam, but after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As a result of the current crisis and the imposed sanctions on Syria, as well as the unsafe transportation roads between supply resources and cities, the demand of basic needs has increased. More in the following report.
Since the beginning of the crisis in Syria, the shortage of basic needs has increased, as the prices of these materials also started to climb. Many factors affected the availability of these materials and their prices, as many factories and supply resources have been damaged or stolen, and the rules of supply and demand have also affected the prices. On the other hand, the US dollar exchange rate led to more instability of prices.
We have various supply resources, and the basic needs are available, like flour and all kinds of foodstuff. The prices have been treated to be reasonable, as we have low profit margin. The difference between our prices and the prices outside the establishments could be up to 25 Syrian pounds. The prices are very high, and there is difference between one market and another, since some sellers have old goods, so the prices is still high, while other sellers who bought new goods with low prices, absolutely they will sell their goods in lower prices. On the other hand, high prices are related to the importers and the factories. The materials prices are originally high, as the profit is only 5%, like sugar. 1 kilogram of sugar costs citizens 95 Syrian pounds, while it costs us 90 Syrian pounds.
The prices are very high. Syria used to be a country for poor, middle income and rich people, but now the situation is different. The prices are very high.
The income of most of the Syrians is not sufficient. However, they try to get more than their daily needs of food because they are afraid of not finding them the next day.
The Minister of Oil has asserted that the total production value of oil and gas has reached $3.8 billion during 2013. He also indicated that the stolen quantities of oil were estimated at 12.9 million barrels last year, as oil production dropped 142,000 barrels a day, while crude gas production was estimated at $6.151 billion. Sources at Damascus Securities Exchange affirmed that the trading value during the last few days have not changed. The last session closed at 2.3 million Syrian pounds distributed on 24 deals. On the other hand, the Qatar National Bank ranked first with a total trading value that reached 1.3 million Syrian pounds through 11 deals. U.S. crude oil fell amid speculation that a slowing economy in China will reduce the fuel demand in the country, the world's second biggest oil consumer. Futures dropped 1% after settling at a two-week high in January. Brent for March settlement decreased 7 cents to reach $106 a barrel. European stocks advanced as the Stoxx Europe 600 index rose to a 6-year high. Meanwhile, investors weighed corporate results and China's central bank added funds to the financial system. Japanese shares also rose amid start of the Bank of Japan's two-day policy meeting as shippers led gains and investors weighed a proposal to cut the nation's corporate tax rate. Gold fell, snapping 3 days of gains that lifted prices to the highest level in almost 6 weeks. As investors assessed the impact of the rally on demand, gold for February delivery was little changed at $1,251 an ounce. The yen fell for the first time in 4 days versus the dollar. as the Bank of Japan began a two-day meeting amid speculation that the governor will expand stimulus to counter the drag from a planned sales tax increase. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.